Today, we're diving into one of the biggest roadblocks to humanity becoming an interplanetary species. But we're also going to look at the mind-bendingly simple solution, a plan that could have us building cities of glass on the moon. So let's get right into the blueprint.
It all comes down to this one number, $100,000. That's roughly what it could cost to launch a single, ordinary brick from Earth and land it on the surface of the moon. Think about that, just one brick.
And this right here is the fundamental problem. They call it the tyranny of the rocket equation. You just can't build a city when every single brick costs more than a car. Launching materials like steel or concrete from Earth, it's not just expensive, it's basically impossible on any meaningful scale.
So, you see, the biggest thing stopping us from colonizing space isn't really the distance. It's weight. Every single pound, every kilogram is the enemy. But what if we've been looking for a solution in completely the wrong place?
The answer isn't to haul all of our building supplies with us. No, the real key is to use what's already there, what's been sitting there for billions of years, covering the entire moon in this thick, dusty blanket.
And that brings us to the most unlikely hero of this whole story, that hazardous, machine-shredding lunar dust.
Now, this stuff isn't soil, not like we have here on Earth. It's called regolith, and it's made of these tiny, razor-sharp, super abrasive shards of rock and volcanic glass. Back in the Apollo missions, this dust was a total nightmare. It got into everything, clogged up machinery, tore up spacesuits. It was a huge threat.
But hiding inside that dangerous dust is some incredible potential. I mean, chemically, regolith is a gold mine. It's about 45% oxygen, yeah, the stuff we breathe, 20% silicone, and it's loaded with useful metals like iron and aluminum. It's basically the perfect raw material for making glass and ceramics. It's just sitting there, waiting to be cooked.
So how in the world do you turn a dangerous dust into a city? Well, you don't use old-school manufacturing. You use the two things the moon has in absolute abundance: dust and pure, unfiltered sunlight.
The process itself is just brilliant, and it's all automated. First, you have these swarms of little robots that just skim the surface, scooping up the regolith. Second, they sift it all down into a really fine, consistent powder. Third, and this is clever, they use powerful magnets to pull out all the iron particles. And this process also happens to release oxygen. And finally, they use huge lenses to focus sunlight into an intense beam that melts the dust, printing it layer by layer into solid glass.
And this is where the system is so elegant. The very act of making the building material for the walls creates the breathable air for the inside. The factory is literally breathing out the oxygen for the habitat that it's building. How cool is that?
Okay, so building robots for the moon is obviously really hard. They have to deal with insane temperatures, that nasty abrasive dust, and a hard vacuum. But the solutions are super clever. Instead of complicated sealed-up machines, they use these rugged, open-frame designs. To protect the important parts, they use electrodynamic dust shields. It's kind of like using an electric field, almost like static cling, but in reverse, to just push the dust away. And what if a part breaks? Well, they just use that iron they pulled out earlier to 3D print a brand new one. The factory literally repairs itself.
So we've got the material, we've got the process, but what can we actually build with it? Well, this is where science fiction starts to look a whole lot like an engineering blueprint.
And here's the real kicker. This lunar glass ceramic isn't just a substitute for materials from Earth. It's a massive upgrade. It has a way higher compressive strength than concrete, and it provides far superior protection against all that deadly cosmic radiation.
And we're not just printing solid, heavy blocks. Nope. Instead, we use a little biomimicry. The structures are printed with these hollow, interlocking patterns, a lot like the bones of a bird. This design spreads all the forces across a complex internal web, making the structures incredibly strong enough to hold pressurized air against a vacuum, all without being massively heavy.
So what you end up with are true fortresses. They're built with double walls, which creates a vacuum gap, basically turning the whole building into a giant thermos to protect against the extreme hot and cold. The thick glass blocks radiation, and what if a tiny micrometeoroid hits and makes a crack? Autonomous drones would detect the pressure drop and instantly fly over to melt the spot and seal the breach. It's amazing.
This kind of technology doesn't just let us build a base, It completely changes the moon's role in our future. It turns the moon from a desolate rock into the industrial hub of the entire solar system.
Of course, it all has to start small. A single printer making one humble shelter just to prove it works and to protect the first pioneers. But soon, with a whole fleet of these printers working around the clock, that one shelter grows into a full-blown settlement. Different buildings are all connected by printed, pressurized tunnels, keeping everyone safe from the harsh surface.
And then we start to look up, because on the moon, with only 1/6 of Earth's gravity, we can build things that would be totally impossible here. We could build shimmering glass towers that are kilometers high, reaching way up into that black sky.
And with all that infrastructure, a real lunar economy is born. It becomes so much cheaper to launch things out of the moon's shallow gravity well than it is to launch from Earth. So the moon becomes the hardware store for the solar system, exporting things like solar panels, refined metals, and fiber optics. And it's also the gas station, building and fueling the very ships that will one day take us to Mars and even further.
What this really represents is a huge shift in how we think. We would stop being just temporary visitors, like campers on another world. We've become true settlers, transforming the very ground beneath our feet into the walls that protect us and maybe even into structures that truly inspire us. Which really brings us to a final thought. Knowing all this, knowing how these structures are built, stronger than our concrete, capable of healing themselves, and designed to conquer the void, would you feel safe sleeping in a city of glass on the moon, watching the Earth hang like a blue marble right outside your window? It's a future that might just be closer than any of us think.